Tonight it is my really great pleasure to introduce you to Keet-ski. Tonight, Keet-ski is going to share with us her work on yoga and the 12-step path. I can tell you that I went onto her website and followed all the links, and she is one exciting woman with some really terrific information that I know is exactly God. It's a God thing. It was sent to me at exactly the right time, and I have a feeling some of you might feel the same way. This is going to change my recovery. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Keet-ski, and I can't wait.
So, hi, my name is Keet-ski. I am a woman in recovery from a grateful member of 12 Steps of AA, as well as Al-Anon, ACA, and I work on lots of what I want to say hooks or cravings or aversions in my life constantly. In my situation, in my experience, it can be the game of whack-a-mole. So my home group is in the Solution group here in San Jose, California, and my sobriety date is April 29, 1985. I know, it's a shock. I can't believe it either. But I'm grateful to be in recovery, and it was a struggle. I put down drinking in 1983, but wasn't able to let go of drugs for a little while longer. I won't give you my full drunk-a-log because I'd like to talk about my recovery path and my recovery as it pertains specifically to yoga. But like many of you, I lived in demoralizing conditions. I made choices that were against my own values and my own ethics for years in order to be able to continue to drink and use in a way that I needed to continue to drink and use. I had a couple of kids, and I am grateful to say that I have a good relationship with them now, and they are both healthy and well. And it was a rocky road, but of course, during active addiction, but even in early sobriety, because I didn't get well like that. I had poisoned myself emotionally, spiritually, and physically to the degree that it took me several years to find my legs and to find a path of stable recovery, so that I wasn't working on just not drinking, not using, not participating in behaviors that were deleterious to my person and to my family, to fashion a life that was in the trajectory of wellness and challenging myself in those directions. Now, in my teens in recovery, by this time, stable family, I found an earth person and got married, and we have a good collaboration of families, and the kids had grown, and I'm now off on a job, and this job took me my husband's job took him to Maryland, and I found a really good job in Maryland, and I was moving up in my profession, and I was becoming work addicted. Now, I know that we say, I'm a workaholic, and that sounds kind of funny, and certainly our employers love it, but it is not a healthy condition. I was taking my codependency and my ACA, untreated ACA traits, and balling them all up into a relationship with my employer and an identity with my employer in this large company, and my effectiveness and abilities within that company to define me. And while I was still going to meetings, and I still had a sponsor and was like checking the boxes of an active recovery life, I really got my sense of well-being, satisfaction, and identity through my job. My job was a never-ending, bottomless maw of need. So the more I did, the more that was asked of me. And I became fluffier and more important. You know, the more prizes I got, the more accolades I got, the more challenges I had, the more effective I felt in the world. The more exhausted I became, the more days in the week that I worked, the more hours in the day that I worked, the more depleted I became. I became depleted physically and energetically and emotionally and spiritually. And there came a day, and reminding you that this is in recovery, there came a day when I didn't know how to get off that train. And I thought to myself, you know, that train of doing and being favored and being popular at work and getting the job done, and that train just kept whisking through all of the stations of reality. And I thought the only way to get off that train was to drink and get fired. Like, what? This is my solution? But, you know, I am an addict and an alcoholic, and I had not yet built into my system of in my corpus, my physical system, not just my system, my ritual in my day, but my systems, the ability to figure out how I was feeling and how to put in the clutch before I slammed into a wall. And I was out of touch with my physical body. I mean, I knew I was aching. I knew I was depleted. I knew I was tired. I knew that I wasn't connecting with my husband anymore, and that my relationship with my family was becoming very superficial, very, just because I didn't have any depth left in me. And I too, someone was mentioning that they were doing YouTube videos of yoga. I had a history of doing yoga with VCR tapes that I checked out of my library. So I put a little video in, and then I would do some yoga. I knew that yoga as a practice felt healthy. Oh, along with doing this great job at work, I was also a runner, and I was going to the gym because I was going to excel in all fields. So I had physical exercise. What I didn't have was a connection with my body that wasn't demanding. Like when you run, you know, you want to go faster or further, or, you know, work towards some sort of a race or whatever. There's like a goal. And going to the gym, it was either, you know, a tight body or more pounds or another class or keeping up. So there was always a different goal besides befriending my body, being compassionate to myself, and to know how I felt and to honor that and to follow those feelings. So I had this kind of connection with yoga that wasn't a personal connection, but that means I didn't have a teacher. I wasn't in a room with a group of people, but there was a physical connection with the teaching of yoga that had no specific goal except to feel myself through the poses. So what happened one day was I was going home, and I passed, I'm looking at the time here, past a nutrition shop, a vitamin shop, and it had a little sign that said yoga. And I passed it every day going to and from work. And I said, if the light is lit on that sign, I'm going to stop in and take a yoga class. It was lit. Saturday afternoon, I drove in, I got my old stinky gym clothes out of the boot of my car, went in, put my $12 down, and went into the drop-in class in stinky gym clothes. The class was very, very small. It was kind of in like a supply closet room. And there were like three other people and the teacher. And her voice was calm. Her demeanor was grounded and easy. And we stepped through a class in a very simple way, very simple hatha yoga, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And I cried. I cried through the postures and I cried through Shavasana. And thus started my investigation of yoga as a healing modality, not as an exercise, not as a way to get a yoga butt or to do something extraordinary in terms of an acrobatic posture, but to get to know my body and my feelings, to find a way to express the tightness and the tension and the longing that was in me. Clearly, I was longing because I was finding, I was looking for love in all the wrong places. I was looking for affirmation outside of myself, in my bosses, in my production at work. When yoga, in the postures of yoga, you learn to seek the affirmation of your own self. You do it first on the physical level when you're doing yoga postures, and then you may be intrigued, you may be curious, and you may find out what else yoga has to offer besides the postures, besides the breath work you might do in a class, besides the meditation you might do in a class. And I am going to talk about that now, but first we're going to do a simple yoga pose. Simple yoga posture just to bring your attention into the body, and we're going to start the journey of combining yoga and recovery. So if I can encourage you to stand up, I'm going to change this so that you can see me standing, and just stand up. I'm going to speak loudly. I hope my volume is okay. Stand up and see if you can bring, I'm going to walk up to the monitor here. When you make a fist, bring that fist in between the knuckles of your big toes. So bend your knees, bring your fist down, bring your feet together so that you can fit your fist in between your feet. Then stand back up. Now that is a piece of yoga magic, of anatomical magic. When you do that, your bones are lined up right underneath your hip bones, all the way down to the center of your feet, mostly, with individual variation because, we're unique. In standing mountain, you build the pose from the ground up. So please feel your feet on the ground. I hope you're breathing. You can rock forward on the balls of your feet. And then you can rock back and feel your heels. And then you can find balance front to back. You can rock onto the outer edges of your feet. You can roll into the inner edges of your feet. And then you can find balance side to side. Now bring your attention to the soles of your feet, whether you're in shoes or in socks or have bare naked feet on the ground. Feel the soles of your feet. With the soles of your feet, you can practically see the surface that you're standing on. Now, some of you may have heard the Joe and Charlie tapes. These are tapes that discuss the program of alcoholics and the 12 steps in particular. And they divide the steps into 3 sections. Foundation, foundation, core? The foundation, the working, and the maintenance. So I'm going to talk about foundation, core, and expression. And here with the feet on the ground, feeling the soles of the feet, feeling strength in the ankles, feeling possibly the energy or the musculature in the legs. Draw up the kneecaps and wrap the thigh muscles around the thigh bones. Feel the connection of the hips in the legs into the hips, and engage the belly and the low back somewhat. So think of this as your foundation, from the waist down to the feet. The first 4 steps. The first 3 steps are your foundation. Foundation, first 3 steps. We move into the core, the working steps. And from that, you bring in the muscles of the belly, the side body, all the way up to the underarms, the support of your back and the openness of your heart, the willingness to work. That's your core. Yeah, steps 4 through 9, the working steps. Soften your armpits, let your shoulders drop, your fingertips just drape toward the ground, and your head balanced effortlessly on your spine. And that is your expression. That's how we move into the world. This is where we find our dignity, steps 10, 11, and 12. Got our foundation, bringing the energy up and consolidating it here in the middle of the body, core, and expression, how we move out into the world. I said I was going to do 1 pose. We're going to do 2. This is standing mountain. Bring the arms wide and up and overhead and look up between your palms, pushing down with the feet, looking up between your palms, upward salute. This is symbolic of doing your footwork and leaving the outcome to your higher power. And bring the arms out and down. And just feel how you feel. You can keep standing, you can sit on the ground. I want to talk about 1 more section of consolidating yoga and recovery, and then we're going to do another pose. All right. Yoga is not just asana. It's not just postures. So the poses, we just did 2 poses, that's asana. And hatha yoga is the royal path of yoga, which has 8 parts. Yoga is not the postures only. You begin with ethics and values. So we begin with finding out what our relationship is with things like non-lying, non-stealing, non-harming, non-excess, non-attachment. And then we practice a relationship with ourselves, which has to do with purity or cleanliness and contentment and discipline and self-study and surrender. And when I heard those qualities, I thought, wow, this is what I do my steps to find out. And that is why there is such pain in active addiction, because we have values deep in our hearts. We have a relationship with these 10 qualities, and that our very lives in active addiction, whatever it is, gambling or smoking, or our relationship with food, when it becomes discordant, when it is in violation of our basic tenets and values, we suffer. And that takes a long time to heal. So in yoga, we start with practicing these ethics and values. And I mentioned that yoga isn't something that has like an end result. It's a practice like recovery. It's not like, and I know that there are people who talk about the word recovered versus recovery versus recover. And I don't want to get into the semantics, but in my experience, I feel like I am always working toward recovery, that I'm finding more and more to excavate in myself and more to integrate. my experience is that recovery is a lifelong process. And the yoga values give me another paradigm, another workspace to come home to myself. Yoga's goal is, if there is a goal, is to uncover and discover your true self. And I believe in recovery, that is what we're working toward as well. Can I become at any day, at any given moment, the best me that I can be? And this is another set of tools, the foundation, the core, and the integration or expression. Those are ways that we can bring the steps, remind myself of the steps when I'm standing in line anywhere. As soon as I stand up tall, I remember in my body who I want to be and how I want to be in the world. In addition to the yamas, which are our ethics, and then our values, which are some non-harming, non-lying, non-stealing, non-excess, non-attachment. And then we have the cleanliness and contentment and discipline and self-study and surrender. And then we practice the physical practice. Then we have a practice of breath, exploration and control. And then we learn how to let go of all things around us. So we first start with just decreasing our attention to what's around us and decreasing our attention to the noise here, the stuff that is just on repeat, that doesn't belong there in essence. And then we practice meditation. And then we practice union with our higher power. It's a multi-step path to get to the 12th step. We move through that 11th step in the concentration and meditation, and then move into a deeper relationship with our higher power. Now, there are scientific explorations about why is yoga different than, say, gymnastics or dancing or another expressive physical exploration. And I won't talk about that today. Maybe I'll come back and talk about the science behind some of the yoga. But I want to say that there is scientific evidence that shows that breath practices help our 7 physical systems, and that meditation is good for the brain. And yoga is a way to address, I think you might have been here for Nikki Meyer, who talked about, it's one of my, I teach with her. She's one of my teachers, Nikki Myers, who's talked about the issues in our tissues, that our experience can get lodged in our body because our body responds to our stressors, unrelieved stressors that can lead to little t trauma, the big T trauma, the after effects of having grown up in a childhood adversity or chaos, or we used to call it dysfunctional families, whatever our language is surrounding it, we've adapted to a shitstorm. That's the authentic yogic phrase, a shitstorm of our lives. And we've adapted by crimping our body, crimping our energetic hose so that it isn't always running us. But guess what? We don't get away from it. It's going to be in our bodies, lodged in our bodies. So why did I cry when I went to my first in-person yoga class in that dimly lit room with that woman with the soft voice who left me alone to cry? Because there was energy being released in my body that had been tamped down through striving and trying. And all of us, I would say, have crimps in our energetic hose, whether it's age old or whether it's new. So the yoga that I teach, and we were kind of bantering around different names for different types of yoga. And I'll be glad to answer questions later because I don't want to spend time on that now. So I want to do another posture or two. I derailed myself. The crimps in the hose gets released through somatic yoga. Somatic yoga meaning my mind and body are connecting. So I'm not trying for the most elaborate pose. What I'm doing is feeling the pose that I'm in. Feel the arrangement of my body, explore the arrangement of my body, breathe into the arrangement of my body, and be present with what I'm experiencing in this moment. Because as an active addict, my job was to run like the wind away from any feeling of, particularly any genuine feeling. I mean, I would run straight into terror and destruction and death and fear and anger because I knew those, but it was a false front for what was really going on inside. So before I do another posture, I want to make a quick link between why yoga philosophy, those 8 parts of the Hatha yoga that I just gave a very brief description of, and more. There's more that I could tell you about what the yoga is, but I want to tell you why it connects with recovery. Why, when I took my yoga teacher training, and there was another woman in recovery in that class, which I didn't know, except we kind of looked at each other as words were coming off of the page and sounding similar. And so at the lunchtime, I think of the 3rd day, we said, "Are you a friend of Bill?" And indeed we were, because everything that we were learning in that teacher training was reminding us of recovery. Why? Because they are closely linked. Quick history lesson. There's a group in the late 1800s in England called the Theosophists. And they were kind of making a break from organized religion and dipping deeply into the ancient wisdom of the Vedic scholars, the old ancient from the Indian continent, the scholars and the thinkers of the ancient times, of reading the Bhagavad Gita and the Sutras of Patanjali. And for some people, these remind you of books you've read or have heard about. For others, don't worry about it. They exist. And Patanjali was the sage who wrote down the verses of yoga that we kind of dig deep into to figure out what the yogis were thinking when they said that we needed to be free of our minds. And that we hear in recovery literature, our magic magnifying mind. Yeah, the Vedic scholars talked about that as well. That with the Theosophists were studying the ancient wisdom, and New York and England were people traveled widely between the two places, and there were Theosophists in New York, and they came over to the States, and Madame Blavatsky and others toured around and gave speeches, and they were, it was kind of exciting and kind of new, and like old wisdom was being talked about. But there was a group within the Theosophists that were not ready to give up their Christian heritage, their belief in that one God. And so they broke off and became the Oxford group. So they were bringing some of the Theosophist thoughts about thinking, about reframing and readdressing our values and what was preventing us from living our values fully all the time. Like, we all have these values, but I don't know about you, I often take action that is kind of contrary to my values. Why? What's going on? So anyway, they were investigating that. And so, as many of you might know, the Bill Wilson and then later Dr. Bob was invited into the Oxford group as kind of a subgroup of the Oxford group to utilize the Oxford principles to help them with their alcoholism. Over the course of time, they discovered that really alcoholics needed to talk to alcoholics. But the Theosophists' thoughts and investigations and open curiosity informed the Oxford group. The Oxford group had 6 steps to freedom, 6 things that you did in order to divest yourself from the weight of the past in order to be able to live an enlightened present. And so those 6 items from the Oxford group was then expanded into our 12 steps. So when we look at the big book and the 12 steps, we're actually being invited into a new way, digested in the best thinking of that time. Of course, it's, majority old white men until later when women were reluctantly admitted, and then later on people of color were reluctantly admitted. But so the big thinking was by dead white men who were informed from the Christian religion. But they immediately said higher power as you understand it, because they understood that the higher power was beyond the definition of a single person, because the Theosophists believed that as well. So yoga philosophy and recovery really align. And I do have a meeting on Sunday mornings where we take yoga philosophy and meld it with recovery principles, and in a meeting, 12-step meeting type format, which we'll post later. But most important, however, is another posture to kind of bring in a somatic and intentional blending of recovery language with yoga postures. Please come back to a standing posture. Let me tilt this up again. And a necessary to me request is that if you should feel a hot, sharp, or sudden pain in a joint, please do less or don't do the posture at all. Listen to your body and believe what it's telling you. If you feel an increase in a regular discomfort that you have, again, do less. This is truly a practice of less is more. And look into yourself with curiosity. I, as a yoga teacher, only address your posture if it's not within health and safety. We're not trying to do the most you could possibly do, but to investigate and garner the most wisdom from where your body is comfortable. So from Tadasana, from standing mountain, please take your right leg, turn it out and point the toe out to the side, and then pop the left leg back a little bit. So I'm still facing the monitor, but my right leg is going off to the right. My back leg is slightly in-toed, and the right knee is bent only over the ankle. So this is stacking the bones so that you're not hanging out in the joint. We're working into a posture called Warrior Two. Arms come out parallel to the ground. First, feel your feet. Trust your body to be in the posture and bring your vision inward, feeling your feet, bringing your internal awareness up the straight back leg and the bent front leg. Again, finding union in your pelvis, in your hips, hip area, transferring that power from the legs up through the spine, through the neck, to the crown of the head. And then turn your heads and look out over your right hand. Feel your feet on the ground as you are grounded in your practice of the principles in your program. As you gaze forward, reach out for your sponsor, your fellow traveler, the person who is helping guide you through your program and your process. And then with the left hand reaching back, imagine holding on to the hand of a newcomer. Strong in your program, reaching for your sponsor, reaching back for the newcomer. Engaging the back leg a lot. Really feel the power of the back leg. Drop the back arm down, turn the front arm up, palm up. Follow that hand as you look up. And you can even lean back a little bit. Feel what's going on in your body. Your body may be hauling that right knee straight, might be trying to straighten that front leg, keep the knee bent. Draw the feet toward one another and breathe. Notice the line from the armpit to the hip. The side body holds so much tension and so much trauma. We like to stretch that out and breathe. Now know where your head's at. Perhaps you're still looking up, or perhaps your neck got sore and you're either looking forward or you're looking toward the back leg. It doesn't matter. Just know where your head's at and breathe. Push into the feet, using the core muscles. Come back to warrior. Wherever your head was at, please gaze once again over your right hand. Bend the right arm. You can bring it down to the leg, kind of as a spacer, so that you don't come down any further. Bring the left hand up over toward the ceiling, and then bring it overhead, bicep near the ear, pushing down with the back foot and feeling that length all the way out to the tips of the fingers. Are you breathing? Now avoid leaning into the front arm. It's there, just keep your waist off of your thigh. And inhale, come back up. Oh, don't those arms get heavy. Drop your arms, straighten your knee, all 10 toes forward. Everybody has their own practice or develops their practice over time. So you yourself may yearn to put your hand on the floor on the inside of the bent knee foot or on the outside of the bent knee foot. So do your practice in a way that's salubrious, healthy for your body. This is how I'm practicing it today, and you could give it a try too. Spin the toes of the left foot out to the side, drop the right heel back a little bit. Hip bones and shoulder bones are forward, arms parallel to the ground, and bend the knee. So here's an additional cue to just kind of cue in to listen to your body. Avoid having the knee roll in. Can you have the knee move toward the middle of the foot or draw itself toward the pinky edge? Yeah. Can you feel that? Can you feel the outer edges of both feet? Bring the strength up the legs. Let it find union here in the midsection and draw up through the spine to the crown of the head. Feel that energy move. So standing firmly in the present moment, letting go of the past with your right hand and gazing but not gripping the future. Feel the strength of the present moment. And we're going to repeat that same sequence on this side. The right hand comes down, the left palm comes up. You can either follow the palm with your eyes, or you can gaze down at your back foot, or you can look forward. Just choose. You got choice. You can listen to your neck. Oh, I didn't sleep that well last night. I got a crick in my neck. It feels better to look back and down or forward. Listen to your body and believe what it's telling you. Keep those legs nice and strong. Draw yourself back up into warrior. Feet grounded, letting go of the past, gazing but not gripping the future. Bend that left arm, bring the hand to the forearm to the thigh, reach the hand up, and then you can come over. And once again, choose what angle your head is going to be at. Looking up, looking forward, looking down, keeping the legs strong, breathing. And remember, if there's discomfort in a joint, do less or don't do it at all. But you may feel a little bit of warmth building up in the belly of a muscle, saying, man, I'm getting strong. And push down to the feet, rise up, coming back through warrior. Drop the arms, toes forward. Take a breath here and see how you feel. How's your breath? What's your heart rate like? How do your shoulders and hips feel? Look at yourself with compassion. Hinge from the hips. Walk your hands down your legs. You can keep a micro bend in your knees. You can have the legs straight. Just know what you're doing. Say, oh, I didn't know I was doing that. And tuck the chin to the chest and aim the crown of your head toward the ground. Walk the hands back up the body. Take it nice and slow. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down. And then you can either squiggle, step, or jump the feet together. Like, oh, how athletic do I feel right now? And take a moment here. Please notice, as we yogis might say, the prana, or scientists might say the circulation, but feel what's going on through your body. And I glanced at my watch. I would like to do one more pose so that I don't run out of time through talking. So we're going to do a pose and then I'm going to talk about it. Okay. So balancing on 2 feet. This is the prelude to balancing on 1 foot. So you might not think it's important, but if I bring my attention to balancing on 2 feet, both feet planted on the ground, I have a little greater success in being able to balance on 1 foot. First is to find something to gaze at, something that doesn't move and something that's not very interesting, something that will take your undivided attention and not be doing anything. And bring your weight over to your right leg, pulling up from the arch, through the knee, through the hip bone, through the side body, dropping the shoulder up to all the way up to the crown of the head. Bring the hands together in front of the heart. Bend the left knee, turn it out to the side, and here are the options. Heel to ankle in kickstand, foot to ankle, foot to calf, or bringing the foot all the way up to the thigh. Those are your options. And you get to choose and you get to change your mind. We're coming into tree pose. So you can, today might be a shrub day. You keep the hands down in front of your heart. Or you can bring the hands palm to palm above your head. Or you can bring them in a V. You can bend your elbows. You can drop your hands kind of like a weeping willow. And you can choose. Looking at your focus point, bring the hands down in front of the heart, bring the knee forward, drop the leg down, bring the hands down. And please, you might think it's silly, but it's so important. Thank your supporting leg. Thank the leg that was holding you up. Thank you, ankle. Thank you, knee. Thank you, hip. Good job. No one tells you you're doing a good job but me. Good job. All right. Wiggle jiggle for the other side. So sometimes other parts of the body try to help and they get a little congested, and it's okay to wiggle in a yoga class. You're not going to break the yoga class by taking care of yourself. So from standing mountain, transferring the weight, bending, now the right knee, turning it out, and choose where you want to have your foot. Kickstand, or on the calf, or on the thigh. And then choosing the posture for the hands. And do keep your eye on that focal point, just like life. We need to know what our focus point is. If we have a focus point, it's easier to balance. When I keep my eye on my recovery and evaluate my decisions in life, like does it support my recovery or does it not, then it's a lot easier to make a choice about what I do or what I don't do, what I say or what I don't say. So keeping the eyes on the focus point. And when you're ready, you bring the hands down in front of the heart, bring the knee forward, bring the foot down, and don't forget to thank your support. Thank you, support system. You did so well. Hip, knee, ankle, shake it all out. Now, as some of you might know, during a regular yoga class, there is a specific routine we do in terms of getting centered and breathing and doing a practice, and then maybe doing a twist, some kind of stretch, and then shavasana. And it's wonderful, and I'm not doing it now, so please don't be cheated. If you don't feel cheated, please do attend a full class when you want to, when you can, and there are free resources as well as online classes, and I can talk about that in a few minutes. Before I do open up, I do have a few minutes to talk about what I think supports my recovery specifically. Those of you who might know me from other venues might know that I'm a real lover of the 6th and 7th steps. I'm not going to expand upon it here, but in addition, like you might think as a yogi, I'd be all 11th step, and I was for a while. Maybe I'll return to being all 11th step, and I love all the steps. But I wanted to talk about what those 10 values that I mentioned at the very beginning, kind of, do they relate to the steps? And I am going to talk about that now for a minute. And 12, okay. So there is a practice of, we start off in yoga, the very first thing, yoga starts off by saying, and now yoga. That's it. Like that's the preamble to the whole deal. And now yoga. Another one of the earliest verses is future suffering can be avoided. Wow, that sounds like the practice of my recovery. Future suffering can be avoided. Like how? And then yoga goes into describing how. As soon as I do the step before the step and admit that my life has become unmanageable, now recovery, and now yoga, like very clear. And guess what? It's all self-paced. That is a real a really important attribute, both of yoga practice and of recovery. It's self-paced. I bloom at my own speed. And some of us bloom and then retract and then bloom again. And some of us just keep blooming and blooming and blooming continuously without ever going to, without ever two steps forward, one step back. Some people don't appear to do that step back. Appear being the operative word. So the very first ethic in yoga is non-harming. And I think I'll only get through the first 5 ethics today, but it's non-harming. And in recovery, that's like my first step. I stop harming myself. I start hitting my head hitting myself in the head with a hammer. I begin to practice abstinence or modification and moderation. I begin the process of positive self-talk. I don't know about you, but I often have not just an editor, but it's a negative editor. And I have learned to slipstream some positive language into their incessant yammering. So for example, I used to refer to myself as stupid all the time. Pencil falls off a table, I'm stupid. I forget something at home, I'm stupid. I bump into a table, I'm stupid. Everything is stupid, stupid, stupid. Now, I was not more important than saying, don't call yourself stupid, which is like a huge conversation because it's a whole sentence. I started slipping in another word, silly. And for me, the word silly, when you start off the word stupid, it begins with an S. So I couldn't stop it before it started. So I just changed the rest of the letters. And it, in my experience from my growing up years, it is attached to silly old bear, which is what Christopher Robin would tell Winnie the Pooh when Winnie the Pooh would do something silly, which Winnie the Pooh was constantly doing and was still so, so beloved, still so, so cared about, still so much the hero of the story, the person we hold close to our hearts. Wouldn't it be lovely if I could be the hero of my own story and be close to my own heart? So what if I called myself silly, like silly old bear? I was going to Christopher Robin myself. I stopped harming myself with my internal dialogue. That's so important in my recovery. When I started avoiding harming, I also stopped doing things like gossiping or going off on a tear on people, like just winding myself up or winding others up around negative talk. And that was very, very helpful in resetting and recentering myself to be more in alignment with my ethic of non-harming, but also more sciencey stuff. It kept me more in my, in more of a passive sense with my parasympathetic nervous system, kept me more in a sense of calm. Because if I wind myself up, I'm shooting adrenaline, I got the cortisol going, I'm all ramped up, I'm ready for bear. Not so helpful. What if I could use kinder language and move toward kinder thoughts? The next one is honesty. The next value of yoga is honesty, and non-lying is honesty. And of course, honesty is an ethic that we talk about in yoga. I say in recovery often. Make an honest appraisal, make an honest list, to be honest with myself, to practice honesty in my affairs, to avoid lying and secrecy. And when I do that, I remove a layer of false identity. Like when I'm being dishonest, I am putting out a different person there. I'm putting out a different attitude or a different behavior than what I authentically feel. I am becoming apart from who I am. Now, going back to non-harming, that doesn't mean I need to be brutally honest in order to be honest, because I also have non-harming as part of my ethics. But honesty also plays out on the mat. Like, what is my honest capability here? Also, what is the honest degree of trying? So Nikki says, with too much, we risk injury. With too little, we risk atrophy. So what is my honest level of effort, my honest level of participation, my honest level of participation in all the activities of recovery? And then there's non-stealing. And we talk about cash register honesty in recovery, which is really the non-stealing of what someone else has. You know, the honesty part meaning I fess up to it, but what about having stolen it all? How about that, folks? But it's also stealing attention. If I stand up at a meeting and I'm going on about a problem, and then the next week I come back and I'm all about the problem. Now, yes, there's a process to working through a problem, but there's another thing about identifying with it, where it becomes less of an issue that I'm looking to resolve and more of an issue of getting people to ostensibly care about me, because at core I don't feel cared about. So I might dishonestly create or perpetuate difficulty because it is a way to call people in. That's a real dicey thing. It's very difficult to investigate. It's more through self-investigation. But I often have to say, why am I complaining about this? Is it because I want somebody to think how great I am for putting up with it? Like, what is my level of honesty, both with why am I still doing it? Or why do I have to do this? Or what is it that I need to do here? And what's my relationship to it? And what's my relationship to others as I draw them in? Also, can I be brave enough to be honest that I am a deserving person? It's so hard. I was probably in my 20th year of recovery, and I was working with a wonderful sponsor, and I said, I just want to know that at core I'm worthy. Like, I felt almost desperate and tender and almost embarrassed for vocalizing it, you know, because we're all, you know, supposedly worthy people, beloved children of God, that we deserve to be here. But somehow I felt that at core I wasn't worthy, that I needed to do something or be something in order to earn my place on the planet. But it was almost too painful to admit to my innermost self that I was worthy. I needed to honestly stand in my own worthiness. And so asteya is not to take away my own experience, not to overreach or underreach. And then the last two I really want to talk about. Okay, good. One is a parigraha, which is non-grasping or kind of letting go. So rather than holding things to me, to be able to let things be and let them go. And I know I hear about it a lot at meetings, and I experience it a lot in my own life. It's just letting go, letting things be, finding the balance between effort and ease. I know when I first went to meetings, someone would say, well, just let it go. I'd look at them and like, What are you talking about? What do you mean? I want you to show me exactly, pry my fingers open one at a time. Show me exactly, tell me how it feels, that somatic part. How does it feel when I let go? How do I know? And there's a couple of things I've learned over the years. One is that my job is done when I'm done doing me. When I start stepping over and trying to tell you how to behave, how to react, how to respond, how to feel, I am overstepping my bounds. It is healthier for me when I let go of your reactions, your responses, your actions, etc. The only thing I can do is me. So if my letting go means learning to accept, learning to abide in the reality that fill in the blank, to know that I process the feelings in me that are generated by something happening or not happening, a memory popping up, or an event that I don't prefer. The only thing I can deal with is my actions, my behavior, my responses, with kindness and compassion, and with absolutely as much time and room as I need. It takes what it takes. Time takes time. And through it all, I remember the words of one of my friends who says to me, he says, "It's already all right." What? What do you mean it's already all right? It means that we're just, to me, this is how I feel about it. It's almost like it is written, but it's already all right. What I'm doing is I'm struggling with something that already exists. So perhaps I can set it down. My job is done. So we stay on our own side of the street. We learn what is ours to do and what is not ours to do. And it takes a long time. And once I've learned it in one situation, doesn't mean that I've learned it for good and all, because it pops up again. And there's another opportunity for me to stay on my side of the street, to process my own feelings, to find out what is mine to do and what is not mine to do, to find the balance, as we do in yoga postures, the balance between effort and ease. How much work do I really have to put into my warrior two to hold the pose for 2 minutes? And how much ease can I find in the posture and let my bones do the work and figure out how I can share the burden in all my body parts so that I'm not working one part or the other. Find the balance of effort and ease. And finally, brahmacharya is a non-excess, non-greed. It used to be translated as chastity, because it was thought that, emotional entanglements would step in between you and your higher power. And guess what? That can be true. Speaking from my own experience, I've had plenty of romantic relationships become a higher power. So learning how to let that shit go and know that I have a higher power who is in my way of thinking, is within me and wants the best for me. But it also means that I don't do anything to excess. When I'm really depressed, do I start buying stuff rather than sitting with my feelings and turn to my higher power? When I'm super tired, rather than resting, do I think that maybe I need to eat? What am I putting between myself and my conversation with my higher power? How am I avoiding that possibly difficult and sometimes difficult and sometimes challenging relationship with myself, which I think is my awakening to my higher power. So can I begin to honor my own instincts? And this goes back to the sixth and seventh step where, our natural instincts have gone awry, when things have been turned up too loud or turned down too low. Can I keep dialing my instincts, my impressions, my thoughts, my emotions, my engagements, meaning how I connect with the world? Can I keep turning down to moderate? Because there is, in speaking from my experience and my point of view, there is no absolute. There's no absolute right, no absolute wrong. I can't avoid fear. Sometimes fear is a very healthy feeling. It's given me very good information. I do get angry. How I express my anger is then how are my dials set? What is my purpose in engaging with the anger? I believe all emotions are valid. It's just how I express them and how loud they are that my sixth and seventh step will clue me into. So that's it for the first 5. That's non-harming, non-lying, non-stealing, not letting things go, and non-excess. So non-grasping and non-excess. That for me really help inform. It's another language to apply to the steps so that I can look at my steps with a different lens and maybe get something else out of it.